Welcome to another episode of Be Heard Women Empowering Women. And today I have a beautiful young Black woman, Miss Tonya Davis. And Tonya is a coach and she does other things that I find very interesting. And I'm going to, before we start any questioning or interviews, I'm just going to let you, Tonya, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be
You're
here.
welcome.
I just wanted to say that. And in regards to, it's really hard to say a little about myself because my journey has been quite entertaining.
Did you write a book?
I
That's what I did. I wrote a book because there's too much.
I'm actually working on two books, but I did write an EFT book about the power of EFT tapping, the healing power of EFT tapping. Yeah, I
Yes,
use that a lot with my clients. So I did write that. So yes,
saw that.
that is true. But for me, I have been just on a self-discovery journey and I've just done so many different things. I've worked in the dance theater space where I produced two dance theater shows, directed,
Oh,
choreographed. I've taught dance in San Francisco, New York, Florida. And, I've even been interviewed by Broadway director Will Nunziata for my previous show.
wow.
And yeah, I'm very big on providing a safe space,
Mm-hmm.
so that was one of my goals is to have a theater and studio in New York because I
Yes.
always wanted to provide a sanctuary for artists. And yeah, and I'm very big on women. I was first into the burlesque scene. I was like, oh, I'm going to empower women this way. And I went underground after doing that burlesque murder mystery show because I wanted to get away from burlesque.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I want to empower women differently. I
Mm-hmm.
want to support women differently. And I was like, I want to guide them differently. How do I do this? And I really started thinking about my purpose and how I really wanted to affect a large group of people compared to just theater. And I was like, okay, how are we going to do this? And I started thinking about the things that I went through, like in San Francisco, at one point, I was homeless for 4 months, and I experienced what it's like as a single woman being on the street
Mm,
compared to a woman who has children being on the
mm.
street. It's a different experience,
You
and
probably are not offered as much help, I would think, resource wise.
yeah, resource
Yeah.
wise, it was like non-existent,
But if you have
I had
children,
to flee.
yeah.
Right. It's totally different. I had
Yes.
to flee to domestic violence shelters. Like that is where I had to pretty much flee to.
Yeah.
And it was just, that was crazy. So just thinking about like even the support of my creative career wasn't very much supported,
Mhm.
and I just started thinking about all these things. And I'm like, okay, how can I help support women along their career journey? Because when a woman steps out to be a business owner, it's just defying so many traditional and political aspects of what they define as a woman. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to help her.
I have to jump in there because I will say in the early 1980s, and I had a business degree, an associate's degree at that time in business. And when I tried to buy a bar and restaurant business, um, they wanted to know if my partner and I were married. Now, there you go. So forget about me with the expertise and wanting to run this business. They look at the man standing next to me and say, well, are you married to him? Because we have someone else that's a married couple. And I always was able to stand up for myself because I needed to. And I let them know I'm the one with the knowledge. And I did get the book. I did get it. And proceeded
Yeah.
in spite of him, be successful. But is that how you're kind of leading me to think of my first question was going to be what made you decide to become a mindset coach? And I think we're
It
leading
was,
up to that.
yeah, I am because So, because of the journey that I have been on,
Mhm.
And recognizing the barriers that I was going through, it all came back to this. It all came back to the mindset. And I experienced what a lot of people call a miracle. I touched on briefly when I was homeless for 4 months. In 12 hours, I was in a 2-bedroom apartment rent free.
Mm.
Like, experience, like, just from changing the way I thought that morning, my day just coincide very beautifully with everything to lead me to a family member that I did not even know was there in California, who happened
Mhm.
to be a super of a building. And
Wow.
like all the events that I did that day led me to him. And it was just like, it's a very long story, that's why I'm kind of cutting it like a little short.
Yeah, we'll
But
abbreviate. Yeah.
yeah, that's when I experienced it first. And I was like, wow. I was like, it's a matter of the feeling. It's a matter of our feeling and waking up and projecting that feeling and carrying it with you all day. And you experience all these little moments of synchronicity. And I'm like, we can do this in our
Love
business.
that.
Like, we could be
Love that.
thriving. We could be amazing. I was like, we could build empires. Like, and I was just like, I really started thinking about that because as an entrepreneur, you don't have that mental support as well to like have
Oh,
a
yeah.
conversation with
Yeah.
someone who understands what you're going through because your family and friends don't get it
Yeah.
anymore,
Yeah.
like
I agree to this because I'll tell you what, that business I told you about at the time, I was a single mother of two children, not receiving child support on welfare and food stamps, and that I could manage to get ownership of a business, you know. And I think it is what you just said, like that positivity that no matter how bad it is today, you can rise above it and you are going to find a way. And I think that that experience that you used, how you changed your life, all had to do with that, with your mental, where you were mentally, right? And synchronicity. There's so many women that are on the same path of finding obstacles, but unfortunately, some of them don't find the way around the obstacle. Do you agree with
yeah, and
that?
that's the unfortunate part. And it's funny because I always say my clients reflect me.
Mhm.
They reflect like a part of who I, was or am working on still,
Mhm.
as a person. So when, one of them, she has a tendency of going quiet, you
Mm.
know,
Mm.
and I know that she's falling into a depression.
Mm.
Because that's something that that's a behavioral trait that I used to have. I used to get quiet. I used to not
Mm.
want to like speak to anyone. I used to want to sleep a lot.
Mm.
So when I started recognizing the behavior, I was like, you know what? I might be stuck in my mind, but I can change this habit and I can get out of bed right now. I can jump in the shower right now. So sometimes, you have to, okay, it's like I recognize I'm starting to eat bad. I choose right now to pick up this fruit instead of
One
picking
little
up fruit
step,
snacks.
one little
Exactly.
step, instead of trying to change everything at once, which is impossible, right? Which we'd love to do. We do that one little step. And what you just said is so true because I have days, which again, in my book, I go through a lot of trauma since the time I was born, even before I was born. I'll tell you real briefly because this still amazes me to this day. My mother, she was a cold woman and she never really was affectionate. And right before she died, I had given her a journal because I wanted to know a little bit about her past. She never talked about it that much. And I gave it to her and she wasn't thrilled with it, but I showed her, no, it says, who was your best friend in high school, that kind of thing. So after she died, now she knew this journal was being left for me, right? So after she died and we collected belongings in the nursing home, I took that journal home and I opened it up and I was reading it and I came to the section that said, how did you feel when you found out you were pregnant with me? Now, I was the firstborn. In it, she wrote, knowing that I was going to read this, well, we didn't have a lot of money, so I kept jumping up and down off the stairs and I took a lot of hot mustard baths. basically, what is
Ah,
she telling me? That she tried to miscarry. So that I thought to myself, it's one thing that you did that, Mom, but to write it down and make sure I knew, that is like hurt beyond the grave, right? But I have had that uphill climb. My book is Raised by Wolves, Trapped by Demons. The wolves were my parents. Okay. They were not the supportive, loving, comforting parents that I wish I had. And the demons were the men that I tried to fill that hole in my soul with. And I did not have coping
mm,
strategies. And when you're not taught coping strategies and good core beliefs as a child, you you don't know any better. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. I totally agree because that's where the programming starts. Like we come out knowing everything and then it gets limited with other people's belief and other people's
Yes.
perception and other people's trauma that they reflect and throw on you. And it always starts from childhood, and
Yes.
it's not about like, oh, blame, but it's like at the same time, now you have to come out of this, like, and you have to choose to come out of it. You have to recognize that you're in it, and sometimes people don't recognize that they're in it. And then forgiveness is, oh
Huge,
man, when I tell you I have yeah, that's
huge. Forgiveness is
a
huge.
toughie.
I really believe that. I also believe that love is something that we're all looking for. And until we realize that it's inside of us, that we have to love ourselves first, we will never find that. It's not going to come from an outside source. Yes, it's wonderful to find someone that loves you. And that's what I was looking for many, many years. And
Uh,
attracting all these damaged men because I was damaged and I had not
be-
worked on myself. Right?
yes,
Can you relate
yes.
to
Oh my
that one?
goodness, I talk about that too. I'm like, why you keep attracting the same kind of man? It's like, but
Yes.
I kind of make it where I use more sort of signs.
Mm.
It's like notice like from your past their behavioral traits. So now when you encounter someone, you make a conscious effort to recognize who they are. And if you choose to ignore a clear sign, it's like, look, we're grown people. We're going to show you who we are through our
Hmm.
behavior, because our thoughts precede how we act. So
Yes.
it's like, don't take it for a joke or don't take it lightly. It's like, no, I just received this sign. Thank you so much for the love in me to reveal this. I'm going to choose to protect my love, and you
But you have
don't
to be
even
healthy
entertain
enough.
it.
You have to be healthy enough to do
Exactly.
that. And I was not. I actually married one man twice, 10 years between the marriages. I always say I did a Liz Taylor, if you know who she is. She married Richard Burton 3 times, I think. They're actors.
Oh
And
my
yeah,
God.
and a leopard doesn't change his spots. He was a cheater the 10 years ago when I divorced him. And why did I think he wasn't going to be a cheater now? But I had done no healing either in that 10 years. And what I was going to ask you too is the most difficult thing I think that we have to overcome is to go inside and like really look at ourselves, which
Hmm.
I was blessed. I had a God moment and I had turned to alcohol and not really considered myself an alcoholic because I was so functional. I owned another business. I was raising my children. I show up for work. I'm not an alcoholic. But things happened to me spiritually, emotionally. And one day I just said, God, please help me. I can't take this anymore. And like your experience, within maybe 4 hours, I was checked into a rehab and I did not even know it was a rehab. I didn't know where I was going. I asked for help. I, sent it out into the universe, whatever concept you may have of
Uh-huh.
God. And I was in a rehab. And by getting sober and detoxing, and going into therapy and finding out why I did things, and I was able to heal. It took a long time.
Yes.
So let
It
me
takes
ask you,
years.
let me ask you about this. I mentioned God. What is your concept of God?
Oh, okay.
Like that
I
one?
believe that I believe wholeheartedly that God is within. I believe that God is within and that it is up. And, when we think within, we always go like this when we point to our chest, our heart, right?
Yeah.
But our thoughts and even our feelings, it's in the mind, and when you control the mind, you control the body.
Yes.
And this is where the God conscious is here. And you have to, it's our job to get closer and closer to God within. In order to
Mm-hmm.
get closer and closer
Mm-hmm.
to God within, we have to emulate more of God. We have to be
Yes.
more love. We have to be more giving. We have to be more
Yes.
joyful. We have, so we have to display these qualities, but it begins by thinking like
Mm-hmm.
God, because then we can act like God, like to everyone that's around us. And that is the challenge because there's two parts of the hemispheres, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's that logical part that's
Yep.
like da 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 that we tend to live in. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's the other part that we don't tend to live in because it's such an unknown, and it's
Yes.
like, but I don't know this way,
I
and it
know.
also requires admitting things about yourself. It
Think.
requires that. Like I had to admit
Yes.
about shame, embarrassment, like
Mm-hmm.
these feelings that I did not want to get in touch with that I was running away
Oh
from.
yeah.
I had to actually acknowledge and reprogram.
Yeah, it's amazing. And we have a big age difference here. I don't know how old you are, but just by looking at our faces, we have a big age difference. And it doesn't really matter. Well, I'm going to be 75 next month. So,
I'm 37.
well, black don't crack, I've been told. And I guess my Italian olive oil keeps me looking young. So,
Because you
getting
look
to,
great.
well, thank you. But getting to that, doing the work that I had to do once I got sober, they told me I suffered from chronic depression and anxiety disorder, and I used alcohol and men to cope. Aha, sounds right. I was in therapy 9 years straight, inpatient and outpatient. The first time was the rehab, and then the following year I was very depressed, and I went to California for 3 weeks because I developed an eating disorder. And then 5 years sober, I got depressed and I went to a family of origin rehab where you're there for a week. They only take 6 people because they do role play. And that was amazing what they did there. And I did not realize, even, 5 years sober, how much my childhood was abusive. I knew it wasn't a good childhood, but abuse to me meant, parents that burned their kids with cigarettes, locked them in a closet, and things like that. And then when I started telling my story, they went, "Oh no, you're abused." And then I just kept going, and I have 32 years sober, which is amazing. And yes, I am married to my third husband, 34 years. Yeah. So and even when I met him, I still wasn't healed. I don't think I'm healed completely. I don't think you ever heal completely. It's kind of a lifelong journey, right? But I so relate to what you're talking about with the God stuff, because a lot of people want to pray to the big guy in the sky. And I had to leave the Catholic Church because they had too many rules that were like how could I say it? Like punishment. Like I got
Yeah.
divorced, so I'm thrown out of the church. It didn't matter if he was a cheater. I thought that doesn't seem. So anyway, I finally found a church. It's called Unity, and it's has that what you said. God is within you, and if you see the God within others and live with love and understanding, that is living spiritual life. That's what I heard when you were talking. Did I kind of
It
hit it?
is. And
Yeah,
oh no, you hit it. And I think what's also just interesting is that we understand and know about the God conscious, but then there's others who work through a different conscious. And you know,
yeah.
they it's not godly, what they're working through, and they've chosen to work through that way. They've
Hmm.
chosen to work through that energy of fear. I like to say there's only two. It's either fear or it's either love. Either your emotions
Absolutely.
respond to fear or your emotions
Absolutely.
respond to love. Those are the two counter forces. And
Yes.
when I came to understand this, I promise everything that I learned about religions and philosophy started
Yeah.
coming to me.
Yeah.
Like the yin and yang symbol, how it's always black and white and there's never a gray. Like
Hmm.
they never mix because they can't exist together.
Hmm.
That's why when we live through fear, we can't have a God conscious mind
Exactly.
because it can't exist where fear is. That's why you have to face your fear so that you can
Yeah.
actually start like embracing love,
Exactly.
you know?
Have you read Marianne Williamson or Deepak Chopra? Either of those two
I
people?
have. Yeah.
Because that's totally their concept. It's either love or fear. And they're actually the writers that had me find the unity movement, because
Oh.
Marianne Williamson, she was a big unity person. She still is. She's young. Um, and I loved her. I met her in person. But that's what led me there. And when we first came here to Florida 20 years ago, I found a Unity Church. And my husband is, we call him CIA, Catholic Irish Alcoholic. But he's in recovery too. It's just a little joke. And we're going up the steps to this church. And of course, he was died in World Catholic his whole life. And he said, "Oh, we're going to hell. We're going to go to hell because we've been." I said, "No, actually, I think we're going to find heaven on earth. We're going to find heaven right here, honey." And we've been going there for 20 years. So you have to be fed too. Like when you go to a church, I don't want to hear fire and brimstone. I don't want to hear that. I want to hear love. And right? That's the truth. Love is the truth.
Love is the truth. And it's very unfortunate, because that is I grew up, to be honest with you, I grew up Christian.
Hmm.
And there was always something missing. I
Mm,
feel since growing up.
yeah.
Like when I was little, I always felt an emptiness. And I've been always on that path of looking for truth, especially like, being a female growing up, and being told what you're supposed to do, what
Hmm.
your role is. And at sixth grade, I was like, I'm not having children. Like I was not kidding about that. And everyone, because I was a girl, there was
Uh-huh.
like, oh, she'll change her mind when she gets older.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
because in their mind, it's like you have to you're a woman.
It's your
Like, and then
role. Mm,
yeah. And then as
mm.
I got older, then that all of a sudden became, oh, she's selfish. Like, what? I'm selfish because I'm not putting my body through this.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
no, I want to be free. Like, and I understood, like, even from that, like, I'm like, that's a lot of suffering, like, that's a lot, to do for somebody else and not really. I was like, whoa, like, that's crazy, and it kind of like,
And
it's a
that
bit touchy,
doesn't have to
and
be your purpose. Like your purpose, look at
right.
look at nuns or priests or certain religions where monks, like there's a lot of belief that you don't have children, you don't get married, and you dedicate yourself to helping other people. Mother Teresa
Yes,
is
to
a,
serving,
yeah,
because
Mother
that
Teresa
is
is a great
what love
example.
is.
Mother Teresa, her children was everyone in the world. That's how she felt. So I totally agree with that. Now I know what I'm hearing is the most difficult thing I think you had to overcome was that homelessness period. Is that true, or was there something else? Is that what you consider?
Well, and the thing is that there was such a big time period before I fully stepped into my purpose
Yeah.
of the coaching. And it's funny that you said 10 years. It was the same for me. It was 10 years. It took a lot of, and
Yes.
I was doing it by myself. I was like writing down my thoughts and back tracing where these thoughts come from. And
Hmm.
it took some time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and through that process, it was like I was doing a lot of resistance. I wasn't going the route that I should be going. I was trying to do other things and it just wasn't aligning with my purpose. And it was a lot of
Yeah.
resistance from me.
Tanya, I can't remember who said it now, but famous philosopher said, a life unexamined is not worth living. Think about that, right? And that's true. And it's going to be hard. Nobody says it's going to be easy to do that. And I also want to ask you, how can you help women today that are struggling? How can you help them to change their life one step at a time?
For me, it's when especially because I'm dealing with women with businesses, I notice that they tend to be that one woman show. Okay. They're like, I can do it all. I'm independent, and that burns them out. And
Yeah.
that is actually my first step is getting those burdens off of
Delegate.
them.
You have to delegate. Yes.
Delegation.
That's
And
a
it
big
comes because
one.
they have to deal with trust issues
Yes,
and
because nobody
control
can do it as
issues.
good as
And,
them.
and oh my gosh, yes.
I still say that now. It's like, oh, I know I should delegate, but they're not going to do it right. That
And that's what
ego.
stops them from
Yeah,
expanding.
that ego, right?
That's exactly it.
It's
And
the
so I
truth.
start building out a team one by one. It's like, let's get this admin stuff off of you. Great. You didn't like doing it anyways. See how
Hmm.
much better you feel? All right. Now let's get you focusing on that technician that you want to train in your style, your technique. Go ahead. All right.
Exactly.
Now you see how much more freedom you got? Okay. Now bump up your assistant and make her your manager. So now you got somebody to
Yeah,
run your shop the way you want it ran. Like I teach them how to expand so
yeah,
they can
yeah,
live their life with the money that they're
yeah, yeah,
generating
yeah.
while incorporating out. I also build out their policies and procedures, to protect their
Uh-huh.
business. So I do that too, their employee handbooks. But I'm like, okay, girl, now it's time. Go to Costa Rica. All right.
Okay,
She can run it. Enjoy your life right now. Like
exactly.
that freedom.
Funny story about like that micromanaging or whatever you want to call it. When I had my second bar, which was more successful because I had it with this husband and he was a worker, he was a businessman, even though he still drank. I had a bartender and I served food and there were salt and pepper shakers on the bar. And he would never fill the salt shakers. And I'd say, you need to, that's part of the job when you come on duty, check and fill the salt shakers. So now I go to rehab. And when you're in rehab, they give you small jobs to do. It might be washing dishes, it might be sweeping the floor. My job was filling the salt and pepper shakers. Now,
No.
if that wasn't a clear life lesson moment of, I don't know what is.
Oh, that is
Isn't
funny.
that funny? So, what's your website called?
Oh, it's
Your website.
www.mstonya.com.
That's easy.
MSTONYA. Yeah.
Okay, wait, I cut you off at misstanya.com.
Uh-huh.
That's it,
That's
right?
it.
Oh, that's
That's
real
it.
simple. misstanya.com.
Oh
All right, and
yeah.
I think you said you had a book out, or you were writing two books?
Oh, I'm actually working on two books right now. One of them is I've definitely been guided inspirational wise to
Mm-hmm,
start with that.
mm-hmm.
The other one is definitely it has to come in pieces because I'm going through traumas. And so as I'm going through those traumas, I'm reliving them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having these flashbacks. So is that one's taking, I'm like, I'm gonna have to take my time with this one. And it's like, but this one is fine. But my EFT ebook is
Oh,
out.
that's
It's
the
the
one.
healing power of EFT tapping.
The
And it's
healing
very
path.
beginner filler. Yeah, yes, it's very beginner friendly, for those who don't know about
I
EFT
know about
tapping.
tapping. I do tapping. And again,
Yeah.
I learned that in my Unity church. So I mean,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah,
That's
it's
what's up.
really, yeah, it's really has all your tools. I want to give you a tip.
Oh,
This
sure.
might help you. On Amazon, in fact, I don't know if you have to go through KDP Publishing, which is Kindle Direct Publishing. You might. Free. It's all free. They have something called Vella. V is in Victor, ELLA. And you can write one chapter at a time, one story at a time, upload it to Amazon, and anyone that has a Kindle, they have a system with Kindle Unlimited where you earn coins. They don't really, it's not money, it's coins to them, but for you, it's money. And they read your chapter. So that book that you're having a difficult time writing, I would suggest write the one chapter time on Bella because you upload it, it gets seen, okay? You get paid if people read it. And then when you're done, I did this with my third book, The Relentless Quest for Serenity. When I was done and I had like 26 chapters, I took it off of Vella and I published it as a book.
Oh, awesome. Because I was going to ask you about that. Okay.
And my first book, of course, that was done with the Kindle Direct Publishing. That's what you type in, Kindle Direct Publishing or KDP, and free. And they give you an app where you write the book, and the app does the chapter headings for you. It tells you
Oh,
what size print you want to put it in. It walks you through everything. It's amazing. I don't know what process you're going to use for publishing, but look into those two things.
thank
All
you
right.
so much. I am definitely going to look into that.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
KDP and then the Vela. And Vela on Amazon, I'm telling you, there were months where my royalty check, I would make more from Vela than I did from selling my book. So you
Oh,
definitely,
wow.
at one month I had $200. So it's not bad for unknown people. When I say unknown, I mean we're not like, celebrities that write books and get automatically a million books sold.
Right.
But look into that. I think that will help you and get back to me and let me know. And I'm going to do a promo code. This recording is going to be on my YouTube channel, and that's also called Be Heard Women Empowering Women, and my podcast. I'm in the middle of branding, which you know about, I'm sure. So all of my assets, social media, are all being changed to Be Heard Women Empowering Women because they started out under the name of my first book, which was Raised by Wolves, Shot by Demons. But the demographic I'm trying to reach is women that need empowering. So you can relate to that. So we have your
Yes.
website, we have your book, and I have 5 things I didn't get to. So would you do this again?
Oh, yes. Awesome. I will.
Because I want to talk about chakras and crystals and all that stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was lovely having you.
Thank you for having me. And I'll make sure I'll send you over some more things. Yes.
Yes, and I'll send you some links. So give me some pictures so I know the right person because I make a little
Okay.
promo reel. And I'll send you the promo reel and also this, and you use it too. Thanks,
Okay.
Tanya.
Awesome. Thank
See you
you.
again soon, sweetie. All right.
Okay.